Let me play you the lengthier, the full clip, if you will, of Donald Trump with Ramin Sadudeh talking about Geraldo Rivera, just so you have it in its full context, where Donald Trump admits that he lost the 2020 election. Let me play this for you. Play this clip.
What was Geraldo like?
He was good. He did a good job.
Yeah.
He was smart, cunning. He did a good job.
And are you guys still close, or are you no longer?
No, I don't think so. He is. After I lost the election, I won the election, but when they said what it was, he called me up 3 or 4 times. I didn't take his call because I was so busy fighting it, with what went on. And we've caught him. I don't know if you see it, but you will. But he called me up 3 or 4 times. And finally I had a little time. I called him back. And he went on Fox and he started talking about the president called me. I didn't call him. I returned his phone call. And he started talking very personally about how I was feeling, how I was doing. And I said, that's really a betrayal. I didn't talk about how I was feeling. It was a phone call that lasted very quickly. Just, hey, how you doing, Geraldo? How's it going? It's not my deal. He's not my psychiatrist.
Right.
But he made it sound like it was such a big deal. It was a nothing. All I did was return his call. But he said, the president called me like I'm reaching out to him. Yeah. And I haven't spoken to him since.
And here's what Ramin said when he was on The Morning Joe, which Donald Trump's spokespeople denied, and they called fake news and the usual stuff that Donald Trump's people do. But here's what Ramin had to say. Here, play this clip.
The other thing that I think is really interesting, because I really got to know Donald Trump post-presidency, and I got to see what he was like. And over the weekend, he was talking about how Joe Biden needs to take a cognitive test. Joe Biden, isn't all there. Donald Trump had severe memory issues. As the journalist who spent the most time with him, I have to say he couldn't remember things. He couldn't even remember me. We spent an hour together in 2021 in May, and then a few months later, I went back to the White House. I went back to Trump Tower to talk to him about his time in the White House. And he had this vacant look on his face, and I said, "Do you remember me?" And he said, "No." He had no recollection of our lengthy interview that we had, and he wasn't doing a lot of interviews at that time. So I think that the American public really needs to see this portrait of Donald Trump, because this shows what he is like and who he is and who he has always been.
And then Ramin went on CNN and also talked about Donald Trump's cognitive issues. Here's the thing, though. Donald Trump's team can rant and rave and say fake news, but they're audio recordings. Here's what Ramin said when he went on CNN. Play this clip.
Your biggest takeaways from sitting down with him, right after he left the White House, when his political power is probably the lowest it's been since 2015, and how he reflected on when he was hosting The Apprentice, and the ratings were soaring in that first season, and just kind of what that looked like for him.
He was very deflated. He was conflicted. He was angry about the way in which the press had treated him. He still believed that he won the election. And he was happiest when he talked to me about hosting The Apprentice. It was the thing that brought him the most joy. We watched clips of the show together. We watched the theme song, and he really lit up. He watched his firing of Omarosa. And then he would talk about what he did at the White House, and he would become gloomy and resentful and unhappy and refer to Afghanistan and Joe Biden. But he also seemed to think that he still had some foreign policy powers. And there was one day where he told me he needed to go upstairs to deal with Afghanistan, even though he clearly didn't.